Welcome to Bonafide Dialogues with Christina Kueppers. Explore our 3 segments: legal tech, creativity, and paradigms and paradoxes.
Connect genuinely, broaden your perspective, and share your passion.
Jack Katz, an artist from the golden age of comic books, began his career in the 1940s and at the age of 95 still works every day. His new book, Beyond the Beyond, is nearing completion and is simply extraordinary, surpassing anything you have seen before. Jack Katz is renowned for the complexity of his art and captivating storytelling. The famous graphic novel, The First Kingdom, serves as evidence of his mastery.
I was introduced to Jack by my good friend and author Matt Sobin at the San Francisco Comic Conference in 2018. Jack is an interesting person, and he has this unique view of the world that just makes you think deeply about humanity and the universe. I asked Jack if he was interested in recording a dialogue with me, and he agreed without hesitation. Jack shared his wisdom, one thought after another, as a chain of ideas and topics that were important to him. I stayed behind the camera. I was there to listen. I was there to listen to one of the most creative minds that ever lived on this earth. And now, I want to share it with you.
Fantasy and the real world intertwine in this interview. What constitutes objective reality? We will leave this question to you.
They think they can find out the exact date of when the infinite verse was born. Well, fine. All right, let's say they say it was a little thing like this, and then it exploded, and this is what we have now. It's interesting, but it's important. So, well, where was this thing? What was around this thing? Was it by itself? How could it be by itself? But they don't want to know about that. They're like little children trying to find out the secrets of mommy and daddy, and how did we get here, and why did we get here. But the issue is far greater. We have what's known as an amorphous system of energies. Amorphous is there's no ecliptics. There's no an ecliptic. I'll explain that quickly. All of our planets go around what is, it's like on a record, okay. And some of the planets are about, like you have this thing that turns, okay. And so the ecliptic is interesting because the planets either a little higher or a little lower, but they're within the business. But there's an endless amount of ecliptics going this way and that way and this way. And it's with different dimensions. There are dimensions that we can't see, but they're there.
Do you think some people can feel and see different dimensions?
Well, here's what happens, and I can prove that now. If you take a look at Tesla, he was a genius. He understood all these things. But what he was obtaining as what is known as the engrams, and engrams are the trace memories of what happened before, of the minds that happened before. And he happened to have, within the composition of his body and mind, okay, the ability to do this. This is what we think of when we think of geniuses. I see what I'm doing also as a series of memories from different artists, writers, and stuff like that. But there's something else with me. Since I've been born, I've been involved in disclosure to actually decode all of the lost, all of the forgotten great minds, memories of, right now, I might as well tell you because nobody will be able to pick it up anyway. I've been involved in the fact that a discovery was made by a spiritual probes by a group of people that went out into space and discovered this log. And the log had to do, and it took them thousands of years to be able to interpret what the log was all about. And they found that there was this unbelievable mindset of a group of human beings, hominoids like us, that was so advanced, they were close to finding out why and what the materials were that put them together, and the world that they were involved in. But it so happens that with everything, there's always this business called the internecine interference. Internecine, INTERSINE, it's this penchant to sabotage our self-worthiness of any given business group with jealousies and fears and everything like that. It's been going on since time immemorial. This is why we can't get together on this planet. Look, we're always close to a nuclear annihilation. And if it happens again, it'll only be part of the Van Allen radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt is interesting because if you take a little green pea, I'll make it simple, and you put it in the middle, in the center of a basketball, okay? The basketball represents the Van Allen radiation belt, but it's not just one thing filled with radiation, it's something else. It's layers and layers and layers held together with, if you look at a coin, you have the base and the obverse, the center, which holds it together, but these layers and layers and layers of how many times we have come from the Cambrian period, which is before dinosaurs, before, and we then developed all the way, the stages all the way through the dinosaurs and, everything else, to finally get to a point where we had galactic trading posts with different groups of people going out into space, coming back with different ores and foodstuffs and stuff like that. Oh, well, this is fine, but you see, but the impetus behind this, in other words, the search, is as futile as the search for the self, and I'll explain to you what I mean. Now, these psychologists think the search for the self, how can there be a search for the self if we are hundreds of trillions of times, and bajentillion, the biggest number in the world, we keep replicating and replicating. Where's the self? All these people have come and gone, and have made an entrance and an exit, And so this Van Allen radiation belt, finally at NASA, I saw this on television, I got the NASA station, and they said, well, now we'll be able to penetrate through the Van Allen radiation belt and free ourselves into outer space, and we can go to another galaxy and another galaxy. Why? What are they searching for? Number one. But number two is important. The fact that we feel it is incumbent upon us to go into this thing, to go into space. All right, fine. Meanwhile, we keep poisoning this planet over and over again. We've denatured the foodstuff so badly that we're getting the strangest kind of breaths.
Yeah, that's interesting that we have this narrative that we worry about the planet, but I think planet will survive much longer than humans.
Everything will, but the planets have a life too, because eventually, see, we think there's such a thing as time. Let's get that over with, okay? There is no time, no such thing. If you take away, you see, we have cosmic rays. They go through us. They're going through Mount Everest. They go through everything. It doesn't matter. They are so incredible. They penetrate through everything. But what they do is they age us. You see, they give us gray hair. They give us all the things that everybody else is prone to. And so we think, because we get older, that there's such a thing as time. Time is a constant. There's no future. There's no past. It's there.
I love that.
Well, how could this be? But this is ridiculous. Who has the life? So in other words, in space, there's a guy that winds up a clock and he says, "Well, here's the time." What are you talking about?
So, Jack, you say we all age. We all age. You don't. You're turning 95, and look at you. Tell me the secret.
Look, but that's what's important here is once you get rid of the idea of time, then you might try to get rid of what's known as space. And this is what they're doing. So they think about how our infinite verse came to life. Think about the fact that in the beginning, there was only darkness. For hundreds of trillions of eons, darkness. It's called Stygian. And then God said, "Let there be light." But he didn't, but he was the light. And when he did that, he tore a hole in the darkness. And the reverberations of what we have now was an explosion of all kinds of things. Planets, galaxies. It looks like albumin sometimes.
What is on the other side of a black hole?
When you come out of the black hole, perhaps there's some other existence. Let's put it that way. And I know what I'm talking about seems abstruse, and who the heck am I? After all, I'm just a comic book artist.
Movie recommendations from Jack Katz.
These are the most important movies that overrode and went through the replication of everything else. And one of them is The Hurricane, 1937. Things to Come, 1936. The Red Shoes, 1947. A Walk in the Clouds, 1995. It's a beautiful movie. It's about regenerating. Mission to Mars, 1980. The Four Feathers, 1939, which is beautiful. The Snows of Kilimanjaro. Okay, The Son of Fury, 1947. Dave, 1998. Pursued, 1947. And 7 Days in May, which is an important movie. It's 1997. Anyhow, these movies are, there are others too. These are my 3-star movies. I never give a movie 4 stars because all of you see when you see a movie, what you don't realize, all the actors, what they're doing is they're auditioning for the next role. They want to show how good they are so they can get another role. And this is how they live. See, the same thing with the directors and the producers and stuff like that. But you see, in the beginning, the first directors were actually painters.
Intelligence.
Now, how do you explain the intelligence of trees? How do you explain the intelligence of anything? This was built in by God. And people who don't believe in God, and they're going to make these new kind of people, they're going to be called transhuman. They're going to take the computers, make a chip, put it in in here, and they think that because it has the compilation or the admixture of all the belief systems and put them into a chip. So they're putting mathematics into the brain and they think they're going to make a superhuman. What will that superhuman be? It will not be the power to give human beings the wherewithal to be able to go out into space and try to change the whole physiognomy of what they are created with. This is it's a shameful experience. On the other hand, most people are not, 99 and 9/10 people in this world are not creative. They do not have the engrams, the trace memories of a higher intelligence or of God's gift of wisdom.
For some reason, I always thought that everyone is creative. We just don't use that creativity.
But it's to certain degrees. See, and this is what happens. Everybody they feel inferior or superior. Or inferior and superior. This is garbage. It means nothing. You know.
I think people were more creative in the past. You look at architecture,
nostalgia.
arts.
Yeah, it's nostalgia.
What is happening?
And we're involved in belief systems, religious belief systems, social belief systems, and they have agendas. And for the most part, most people are involved with agendas not of their own making. It's just like they don't have, the self is, again, another illusion. See, my mind doesn't think, I've bypassed this. By the time I was 12, I wrote the entire First Kingdom. I really did. Very badly spelt. And the problem I had when I was living in Canada, when it happened to me when I was very young, I didn't know how I could put it together. But one day, I was about 5 years old. Remember, I had this about 12. When I was 5 years old, my father brought home some fish. We lived in Canada. He brought home these fish in the Sunday supplement, in the comic section. And I took a look, and it was the comics, and it shows you these boxes, you know, like this, the Sunday supplement. And it was Tarzan by Hal Foster. I didn't get to, when I worked for King Features, I got to know him. He used to go over my stuff, put in shadows. He was an extraordinarily brilliant man. And so I figured out how to do this with these boxes. Now, Hal, to show you, after he did Prince Valiant, they made a movie of it. He and his wife come to the movie place, and the guy would not let them in because this was like going to be an opening night, and it was only, you know, he says, I don't know who you are. He says, but I'm Hal Foster, I'm the guy who wrote it. He says, it doesn't matter. So he went home.
So why didn't they let him in?
You can't prove who you are They didn't have identification in those days. This is a long time ago. When they found out about what this guy did, they fired him. Hal did not want him to be fired, but on the other hand...
Jack, you mentioned to me today, you were saying that you never wanted to be famous. Your art is amazing,
no,
extraordinary.
I didn't want notoriety.
You wanted to... Yeah, you didn't want notoriety.
I didn't, because I know what happens when you have notoriety. And everybody wants to kill something that's creative. Where does our intelligence come from? Well, you could say, well, it must be in the brain. No, the brain. The brain is only a nerve center. That's all it is. See, if I touch this, my brain told me what that. Yeah. If I touch this, see, everything. It's a nerve center. It's telling me what these things are made of. Okay. Yeah. The brain cannot create. The brain cannot. It can't do anything. But it is a storehouse of stimulus response. Stimulus response. Anything here, see? Oh, that's not the same, see? I can feel. Okay. Now, what I'm getting at through this whole thing is the fact that our association with this infinite verse around us, okay, is one which it's really a mystery inside of a rebus, inside of an enigma. And also we are terrified to really try to explore. We're terrified to explore the nature of what's really going on. We just don't, and the very fact is that, yes, you're right about one thing, everybody is the same in many ways, trying to find some escapist diversionary reason or addiction which will help us overcome the fact that we all know that we have a certain amount of time. All right. But on the other hand, all of this, in fact, our planets, everything eventually goes into decay. They become dormant, they become there's a word for it. It's derelict. The whole thing. There are derelict galaxies out there. We become like derelicts. No life within, no life without. Whatever it was has been spent. The supercharged cosmic rays have penetrated through, and eventually the planets also have no longer any life support in them.
What's the purpose of life?
You're jumping ahead, 10 different jumps ahead.
Are you going
all
to
you
talk
want to
about
know
it?
is what is it all about.
Exactly. That's the biggest question, right?
It isn't a question either. It's something else entirely. That's the problem. We think there's a question and answer period. Well, we pass the question and answer period eventually, because we become inured. We become used to. I've become used to the pain that I have from that fall. Okay, you become used to self-abuse. You become used to the idea that some people think you're an idiot because they think they're so smart. If they were smart, there is no superior or inferior. This is a formula for a series of non sequiturs. Nothing seems to fit. It's all disassociated. Okay, and this is why I talk about this. Well, it's actually an amorphous, which means it's a tremendous amorphous of things. And inside here are all of these different galaxies, and you name it, and everything that incorporates existences. But eventually, we'll find out we may be inside an enormous bubble, and all we're doing, all the galaxies, everything, all the super sciences, all of the space explorations, are confronted with this barrier.
We win the bubble.
But what's beyond that barrier? What kind of makeup, what kind of, what would we call it? It's what kind of memory glands? No, it's beyond that. It's a magnetosphere which surrounds everything. Okay, just there is magnetospheres that go around the smallest macroscopic things. There's a good word for it and I forgot. But the point is that it's an attenuated material, and somehow we may be able to penetrate through this thing, because everything resides within it. Galaxies, you name it, everything we see in our infinite verse, going around and around and around, trying to find a hole. And eventually, the magnetosphere does not have the wherewithal to withstand the perforced, it's a word, perforced energies that put together, let's say, a special, race who are able to have the intelligence to know how to penetrate through the, what's the word for it? The membrane of the magnetosphere. I have done this. See, here, I'm not trying to be egocentric. Whatever it is that composed the material that I am. And I saw that outside of this tremendous, all the planets, everything is, this membrane. It becomes something else. It is unlike anything imaginable. There are things there that it goes on indefinitely. It never ends, never. It's called amaranthine. It's timeless, spaceless. It's amaranthine is everlasting. Okay, it's an everlasting situation. And if you can get lost inside the bubble, can you imagine what it'd be like outside? And this is why I wrote this in the First Kingdom. When Tundran says to Aqua, he says, if you leave us on this planet, we don't belong here. He says, you are a child of existence. How can you get lost into the area that you have been born to be part of? How can you get lost? So the question and answer period was involved in the First Kingdom. And the kingdom itself, I don't know if anybody, eventually the kingdom was published by Titan in England. And there have been some, but it's so enormous. It's so hard to explain that I tried my best to keep it within the framework of let's say, my bubble of the areas to which I did not want to go beyond. But I've done a number of books. One of them was the Space Explorers Club, which is 500 pages. Oh, there are just so many books that I've been entertaining. Now, there are a bunch of people now that finally took all of my artwork, as much of it as they could find, everything. The work that I did in 1960 was entirely different. I try to start my paintings with a kind of, if you look at hieroglyphics, everything's on the side. So my paintings represent, they just found one on the internet. You could find it now. It's a painting I did. I think there's already been one bid of $100, which is ridiculous, um, of a guy with a mandolin. Just the same, it's painted very carefully with my anatomy flattened out. All right. I'll just, let me take out any book to show you.
The legendary Jack Katz is reading The First Kingdom.
Okay, let me see, this is book 2 of The First Kingdom, and it has 6 books within, and this spaceship comes and they meet another spaceship unlike anything, and the people come. They come aboard and they see this family here, and they talk about this unbelievable war that they allowed to happen, and so they were on the periphery and they escaped. And so they're looking for their souls. This is another thing. The thing goes on forever. Well, at any rate.
There's so much detail.
I know. Can you imagine? And this I did with brush and ink. Now I just use the pencil. I don't have the time to follow it up, but I'll just.
And then you read the book. Then you actually read the book. It's so deep.
Some of this, okay? This is Tundran. Now it says, even I have a problem with this. It says, Tundran, Kenmore of Moringan, and had long since forgotten the pain he felt from the straining his muscles to the utmost, and the constant lash of the overseers. He could not remember the origin of his present state. The servitude occasionally, no, of the servitude, occasionally there was a vague recollection of escaping from a cave, and that's in the other book ahead. I'm sorry if I'm not reading right, but I'm not perfect. I'm sorry. Occasionally, a man's head in front of him would fall from view, and his heart and his inert body would be dragged along the circular course until one of the overseers would take notice of him. Here we go. There you can see he's being dragged here. And says, if he was lifeless, a new man was immediately pressed into service. And so each day for Tundran became a reenactment of the day that had passed before. Now, I'm going into this because there's a reason for it. It says, one day after a man on his own shift fell into the same fate, a new slave was chained to the position. Tundran seized his new captive And the same feeling of defiance, let's say, toward the enforced servitude as he was, as was welling within himself. For the first time since his capture, he began to take hope. The thought of escape becomes more of a reality. And it says here, now I can see better. It says, so where you, it says, he says, here you are, Prince Alandan. I hope these chains are in keeping with your taste for jeweled ornaments. And there he is. This is Alandan. Nobody else had ever thought about this. And I don't care. And they have stolen from me like you can't imagine. Okay, he says, Tundran's estimation of Alandan's attitude is not long in coming. There's Tundran, the young boy here. And so Alandan says, this food is not fit for snakes, and he throws it down. Well, when he does that, the overseer says, and because he was always a catalyst for the overseer's whip, and his overt provocation was tailor-made for their sport. In other words, they loved the idea of beating up on Alandan because he just wouldn't bend. Okay. Now what happens is, he says, Tundran can watch the slaughter no longer, tensing his muscles as the priest had taught him to endure great pain. He acts. See, he's throwing his body over Tundran, and he's receiving the beating for Tundran. Okay, it says the action of Tundran cements the friendship between him and Alandan, which would never be broken throughout their lifetimes. And he said, I'll never forget what you did for me today. I owe you my life. He says, perhaps what we can do for each other is more important. And Alandan says, escape. And he says, escape.
Such a, I think it's such an interesting thought about friendship.
Yes,
what does it mean to you?
Because Tundran, Tundran was brought up by the priests who left it. The story is, it's a tremendously long, it's 768 pages. So then what happens is, okay, I'll just, I'm going to just go to the next page too, because it's important. It says, here we go. In the months that followed, no opportunity to gamble on a break for freedom presented itself. Then one day, one of the barges, having lost some of the crew during a storm, impressing is it's seizing. Okay, it impressed Tundran and Alandan into service at the oars. Finally, so here they are. They're going to be put on this barge. Okay. Now this is fascinating. At the great port of Intas, while their barge unloads a cargo of granite blocks. A merchant ship sails close by, and Alan heart leaps as a slender figure appears at the rail. Oh my God! And then it's Paris. She says, Alan, this miracle chance meeting, though we may never see each other again, I will always love you, Alan, my love. And she takes her little necklace, she throws it down, he picks it up, and this is to show you how he had been so divorced away from life itself. He says, that night Alan does not sleep, and though Tundran does not understand fully the emotion which has gripped his friend, he tries to comfort him, for no lash or abuse of any kind has ever caused Alan to alter his stalwart nature. And he's repeating, Damie, my Damie. Of course, they were lovers. And it is just, the story keeps going. And by the way, this is also important. It has to do, did refer to the Bible. This guy this Aqua goes to the top of this mountain where there's no oxygen, and yet there's a flame there. So that's another thing. Meanwhile, Aqua, he's on trial for his life. It's a very large. Look at the interior of this
Very
ship.
complex, yeah.
It's so. I don't. You don't have all the books, but. This story that look at the stuff here. Well, this gives you some idea. Here they're repairing some of the damage of the ship outside, and all right. Meanwhile, what happens is the first time that they are working with these cyborgs, and this one is capable of reproduction. So I give an introduction of how this could happen. Meanwhile, I needed to make this spaceport. And I said, what would it be like? So I took my shaver and I designed. The minute I saw it, I said, oh my God. There it was. And
spaceship.
And it's very, one of the things I did the last time I had, these were Winsor & Newton brushes that were made before World War II, and I was almost finished with them. And there's so much here. It's just here. And the way they get away is there's a storm. And meanwhile, they're pulling away the chain which holds all of them. This is interesting. Here, what's his name? Let me see.
So nice to see a smile on your face, and you're, going through your book. This excitement.
Well,
you have. Look.
Well, this is Awan, see, and he lands on this island, and he brutalizes her. He beats her and everything because he doesn't know anything but a military life, and yet something happens to him. See, as he turns to hide from a possible capture, a sound reaches his ears, which freezes him in his tracks. Captain, look, a girl. And they're going to chase her, see. And so, instead of escaping, he has enough arrows for everybody. And the last one is his own crutch, which he kills. And this is what happened to this poor guy who was a militarist. He said, amidst the peril which still confronts them, Acromos fights desperately the feeling which compelled him to risk his life for Awan. which he had brutalized since his enforced stay on the island. And she says, Acromos, you saved me, you saved me. The expression on his face is priceless. He can't believe it. Okay, anyhow. Meanwhile, Tundra and Alandon they make their escape because the ship, the barge, hits the rocks. And interestingly enough, I'm giving away some of the story here. Here's Alandon, and I remember he's a former prince, and he playing this lyre, and they fish Tundran out of the water, and he says, the song I'm talking about is this great king. He doesn't realize, Tundran, that it's his father, but that's okay. And so they come up on, and so they learn how to fish for a while. They come up on this island, and this is the story of Alandon and Dami. And they were great lovers. They loved each other. The instinct to replicate was very strong. They hid, and then they're discovered, and the punishment is they're separated. And I made him as Neapolitan as I could to make him a Latin. and I said, he says, and Tundra, you see now how hopeless it is. Should I find her, we still have no Gan of our own. In other words, even if he found, there'll be no kingdom of it. And Tundran says, he says, nothing is hopeless. We together will find her and build a new Gan if we have to. He says, we have no Gans of our own either. We would like to join you. And these two people join them. And this is finally, what's his name? Akromas. He said, all right, I'll just read this. It's ridiculous, but I'll read it only because you'll see what happens to this poor fellow who is so military. He says, eventually they reached the safety of New Island chain, where he again fell into brooding about his misfortune. Constantly looking to the sea in the hope that a Moringan ship might find him. However, his zeal to complete his mission began to slowly lose its importance. The constant attention and continual devotion he received from Aram began to soften his military heart. And then this is the knockout, he says, to which Awan accepted implicitly regardless of the callous and brutal treatment he meted out to her. Acromos finally succumbed to her. He says, his officer's class military education inculcated it, since his childhood, gently faded away into his acknowledgement of his love for Awan. And finally, isn't that nice? After all, he really beat her. But the book goes on. I mean, see, I know what I did. These things, they dovetail into each other. While this is going on, this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And,
in parallel.
It just becomes very there has never been, there never will be anything like this. I'll just see if there's anything else here. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, Tetra, she reflected my aunt, who was beautiful and a bitch. She drove her husband out of the house. And so here's, what's her name? Tedra. And he had lost the Omnistone, part of the building blocks of life. And she finds it, and she has power over him. Tundra gets together with a number of people, and they're going to. This is interesting. And he says, let's see, he says, following up the trail for a half a day, and then a surprising and them to a simply a sharply altered terrain after cutting their way into it for a short distance. He said, if this statue of he whom all the odes I sang of, he says, but how could it have come to this out-of-the-way land? And Tundran says, instinctively, he says, strange, I feel I somehow know this Darkenmoor, which was his father, actually. And so to put together the pieces of all the people, you have to understand, even in this book, I think I have a series of some of the characters, and this gets larger and larger as the books continue. So, and then eventually, what's her name? Farah is able to escape from this place. She's lorded here and stuff like that. So finally, she gets on a boat. She escapes, and but this is only one.
Who's your favorite character?
What?
Who is your favorite character in this book?
Favorite?
Yes.
Which finger is your favorite?
There's no such a thing?
Look, this is interesting here. But this is only one of the great. You see, what happens is, on their graduation day, she doesn't understand, and she said, it all happened a long time ago on my graduation day. This is what he looks like now. He's blind, but he can see. Okay. So there he is with the others, and they're going to go out into space. But when he goes out into space, he's confronted with a space bridge. On the bridge is this intellect. And the intellect opens up his the cockpit of his rocket, and brings him and holds him close, and it shows him what the world was like once. And he said, and here's Romeo and Juliet. There's so much here that it's a very complicated story, but it makes perfect sense. I dot every I and I cross every T. Alan Dunn is captured, Tundran, and then Tundran's confronted with this beast. He's not having fun here. And meanwhile, some arrows come flying, and she says, and there's Farah, and she says, I saw the whole thing. You made a good account of yourself. Few men could have survived a surprise attack of a Volanoid. he says, my name is Farah, and he says, my name is Tundra. So you see the first two people that are going to be significant in the story are getting together. When they leave the island, there's a volcanic explosion, and they're still very young, and then they learn to help each other. And this is Tundra and Farah, and yeah. So let me get to one other. See, meanwhile, this high priest is almost dethroned. I'll explain later what that's all about. Okay, now, meanwhile, there's this kid here, and he's confronted with this enormous creature from another world, and there's something about him. So he takes him over to his planet. This is where my inking, I used to be a terrific inker, and then I decided it takes too long. And he takes him to give you some idea. This is 3 times the height of Mount Everest, okay? And you enter, these are the steps that you go to. And then finally he takes him to this place, and they test the kid to see whether or not he's been infected with the cosmic rays. And but then he reflects on this. Sometimes when he's playing speedball, or he goes to the Cosmic Academy, and even Janek says, I don't know who I am. I don't have an origin, And now the guy who set up this whole thing in an effort to escape the fact that he himself has played God with these people, with the robots, and there he is. This is shame and guilt all at the same time. And if you take a good look at this face here, it reflects the whole thing. The reason I'm going through this one book, it's the third book in this series. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, yes, Akamos was on this island where they went, remember? Mm-hmm. And they have all these children, 1, 2, 3, and they find, what's his name? Katara. He was meanwhile, Alan Don's not having a good time over there. And I always left everything with a cliffhanger, And meanwhile, Farah and Tundra are captured, and they put them on this island here, and so they can't get off. They can survive, but they can't get off. And okay. Here, I'll just read some of this. Okay. He says, and on another island, a badly injured general awakes. He said, do my eyes deceive me, or is that not you, Admiral Akramos? Remember, Akramos is the one with that woman. Says, during my mending of you, I saw no wounds upon your eyes, Katara. They were generals together at Moringa, and he says, steadily, Katara, you're still, he says, steady. He says, you're still in very bad shape. And so this is he and Awa have quite a few children. And he says, so you see, Akamos, with you by my side, freeing Moringan from the clutches of Fargrim will be assured. And he said, I'm afraid you'll have to do without me. I have no more desire for fighting. There is no hate in me either. I have found love and peace, he says. Here I will minister to your wounds, and you are welcome to stay on this my island forever, if you wish, or sail on to your own destiny. But for me, I will do no more fighting. And that's Akamos. My goodness, he was, don't you want to play with us anymore? No. Well, at any rate, the story goes on and on. These are the intellects that they were constructed, and they go to whenever they come to another island, they drop the seeds to make, flora, making, and this was Johnny Buscema, from memory. He was a friend of mine, another artist, and his wife said, "How dare you make him so fat?" I said, "He's not." and the story goes on and on. I mean, I can't even describe it. How I did this is another miracle. And I began to realize I was chosen to do this. Nobody else has ever thought of a story like this. This is, he was one of the, he mutated into that situation. So he was one of the command admirals aboard a starship. And I tell you right now, this is not one of the better books, by the way. But it's good. Meanwhile, they make an ore processor here. They think they'll be able to get off this planet. Here, the priesthood, and so they make a vow of solidarity. These hands I made. How did I do this? I just don't believe it. Look at that. Can you see that?
Yes.
I don't know anybody. See, a lot of people do a lot of things in comics. They do. But this is unlike, this is not a comic book. This is Tungent and Farron. They can't get off this island no matter what they try. He tries to get away, and the waves won't let him. And when they finally get to the top, they see, what's his name, Nestor. And
you took this comics art to the completely different level.
It's a graphic novel.
No, it's a graphic novel, but your style is so unique.
Oh, no, I had given him this picture. If you can find it, hold it. Hold it.
What's the name of this magazine?
It's called Alter Ego. Hold on, please. I had given him a picture of something I did when I was very young. To get it, it was 1943 or 44, believe it or not, during the war. And I was too young at that time to see any service. However, I've got to find this, please. Oh, God. Ah. So finally, I used to do Bullet Man, Bullet Girl, and this is Captain Marvel Jr. And I gave him this drawing just with these colors here. And somebody else made this color around here, and he got credit for it. But here's, you see, Bullet Man, Bullet Girl. The anatomy is incredible. Nobody draws anatomy like this. Nobody knows how. And I gave her, though she's a woman in every sense of the word, she's not sexy. She also has her expression in the eyes. She's beginning to develop a wisdom. She knows she was chosen to fight crime, but on the other hand, there's her helmet, yeah. Did you see this, by the way?
Yeah, you showed it to
you
me.
took a
It's
photograph
beautiful.
of this?
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Okay, well.
And this
so
is in 1945, and
know.
it just got published.
So, at any rate, so this is a world. But you see, I had to learn how to draw, and so the more drawings you see, and I gave up art from the age of 26 to 40 because I wanted somebody to love me, and she said as long as I didn't draw, she would stay married to me. One day she caught me in the bathroom and I was starting to draw, and she said, I told you what I'd do. She divorced me.
Why she didn't want you to draw?
She went back to her original. I had to just think that she was the most beautiful thing in the world. As long as she was the Queen of Sheba, everything was fine. Well, it was so painful not to draw paint. And so finally, in the long run, occasionally I would get off by myself and do a sketch here or there. But
you feel like those were lost years for your art?
Look, but the fact is that my, whatever it is that's been guiding me, and I believe there are cicerones. A cicerone is a guide from God. And this is what's been happening. And the people that don't believe in God, I'd like to know what a better substitute is. So
I think everyone believes in something,
Yes,
you call it God.
They believe in communism, they believe in fascism, they believe in all this stuff that has nothing to do with reality. Nothing. They don't know what reality is. Reality is an illusion. At any rate, it doesn't matter. The only thing that is, let's say, of any consequence is for some reason or other, I've been selected to do this. Why? I don't know. It may have to do with maybe the ancestors that are inside of me. Maybe they had their opportunities were crushed, or that this I'm sure of. My ability to draw without any reference is this is the same thing with Tesla or any of these people. And then say, you see, look how egocentric he is. Yeah, he's aggrandizing himself. He thinks he's as smart as Tesla. Well, whatever you say is right. I can't. This is when I can't deal with people like this. I can't ever talk about these things. This is why I do not want notoriety. It's that simple. I have to be able to protect myself till I can complete this stuff. And let me see. I have.
But you still want people to see your art, to read your books, to receive your message.
Oh, I know. And by the way, if you have your phone, you'll be able to punch in that painting that I did. You'll see what I'm talking about. There's a guy with the mandolin, and
I saw many of your paintings in Berkeley. Remember, they're beautiful, beautiful paintings.
95% of my work has been taken out of the storage and put into a special place by a bunch of people who were guided by one of my former wives, who used to be the top manager at UC Berkeley. And she's the one that's trying to find out all about me. And that's why she has this psychiatrist looking into it, and this guy who's an atomic fusionist, whatever it is. And, well, maybe they will discover, and then they'll tell me what it's all about. Because I don't know. All I know
so they're trying to understand and study your talent.
I have the same hunger as everybody else. Yes, I would like to meet even somebody now, but she would have to be as crazy as me. I cannot, because right away they begin to look at me like, what is it with me? Even if I wore a ring on my nose or painted my hair, then I'd be more safe, because that's what people do when they're broken. I'm not broken. I am who I am. And I have a tremendous amount of love in me, if you want to put it that way. But not at the expense of my mind. I cannot sacrifice that. And,
I think that's a good advice for everyone.
Yes, in a sense. You see, the reason you say that is because the reason you're attracted to what I'm doing is because you have the same power that's just starting to develop in you. But if you were like the average human being, and I mean that, the ones that play canasta, or they have coffee clutches, or they go into escapist, diversionary addictions, yeah. But you're not like that. That's one of the reasons that you're able to, that this is fascinating to you, is because it's part of yourself. It's part of this powerful, this continuum of creativity. And of my 4 children, 2 of them, and one of them was in the Air Force. But the 2 girls were very bright. Beth, who lives in Hawaii, she is so curious. She worked with the Einsteins. Worked in she was their manager at UC Berkeley. The Einstein, the top physicists.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, look who you work with. She said, no, they're not like you, Jack. You come from a different realm. I said, realm means regal. Anyhow, what I'm going to do.
So, how your children, do they
what?
do they call you, your daughters?
My daughter, God, Beth is the oldest, so she's in her 70s. But Laura is, no, she's not that old at all. And the 2 boys, they're very bright. They have intelligence. They have everything they're supposed to have, and they're not creative at all.
Mm.
There's the bottom line that severs people. And this is why you are the way you are, because you identify with it subliminally. You can't see it, you can't feel it. It's not visual. And when I reach you, it reaches you where you live, and that's something some people, they don't. I mean it. They don't have it. Not that perhaps they have other dimensions that they never follow up. Perhaps they have all of the unity of purpose that we're supposed to have, but in different dimensions. Let's put it that way. Much of what I'm doing comes from unperceived dimensions, and I don't know what it's about, really, in so many ways.
But I can see that it just brings you so much joy too.
Well,
just seeing you reading your book, and you light up right away.
In fact, here, let me see what this is. It says, he said, this work represents one of the most awesome undertakings in modern comic book history. Will Eisner, he's dead now. And by the way, he was given credit for doing the first graphic novel. But it's not true, because Andy Kunker, who is the super quintessential authority on comics, obtained my letters to Will talking about the graphic novel before Will's book came out 4.5 years later. So, and let me see what I said here. Well, he says, you simply can't believe how dense this book is until you read it. It's black and white, but it doesn't need the parlor trick of color to capture the imagination. It does it just fine and never lets go. And then it says, ain't it cool? Oh, wait a minute. This is interesting. It says, feted as the first true graphic novel, favorably compared with William Blake's visionary musings, The First Kingdom is a usually ambitious and didactic and human work. William Sharp, co-founder of Matefire, here. Okay, this is interesting. Like seeing glimpses of a dream world depicted by an artist with a remarkable creative vision, Jerry Siegel, creator of Superman. So I've had some pretty good people who who have seen these things. But creativity has a great deal to do with our ancestors, what they imparted into you or into me, like that. And I'm glad that I got these movies here that I mentioned.
What is love?
Love overrides all the other things. It is like light in the infinite verse, in the dark of the universe. It is a spark. I'd like to, if you want, I want to play one song and explain how they express love.
Speak low when you speak love. Our moment is swift, like ships adrift. We're swept apart too soon. Speak low, darling, speak low. Love is a spark lost in the dark. I feel wherever I go that tomorrow is near, tomorrow is here, and always too soon. I'm so old and love so brief. Love is pure gold and time a thief.
Time is a thief. What a piece of music.
We're late, darling, we're late. The curtain descends, everything ends. Too soon, I wait, darling, I wait. Will you speak low? Will you speak love?
Now, at the very end of this, it's a musical. At the very end of this, I want you to hear, this is amazing. Hold it. Wait.
Ozone high.
Do you like it?
Here, please. She lives it. She had left him. He's all alone. And then listen to what he says. It's an incredible musically. Now listen to his voice. He is a singer. It's so melodious. Now listen to what he says.
Why did you leave me? You said I'd never be alone again. Speak low when you speak love. Our summer day withers away too soon, too soon. Speak low when you speak love. Our moment is swift, like ships adrift. We're swept apart too soon. Speak low, darling, speak low. Love is a spark lost in the dark. Too soon, too soon. I feel when...
It's a feeling of being one with nature, one with God. And it's inexpressible in a sense, because it's a strange term that we use, and it's always overused. And oh, you're gonna love the new car. I mean, it's ridiculous. It goes. I mean, we have taken the terms that are really precious, and we bastardize them. And we use them, and many people, this is how so many people get seduced and to coerce into buying things they don't need, into belonging to different political parties in which they have no feeling about.
So to you, love is a very, very kind of special word.
It is.
We don't
It
use
is.
it left and right.
No,
right?
this is
love
the.
has to
I agree.
be special moments.
We don't.
Special.
I know, and it's more than all. You see, and sometimes the person you might have been happy with wasn't born yet, or had been born and died a long time ago. So sometimes there's no synchronicity. It doesn't fit. It's see, and I knew a boy. He saw this painting in the museum, and he fell in love with that woman there. And she was a courtier or something like that. And I said, how did you? He says, I don't know. I was there, and he may have been there, because we don't know how many times we have reincarnated. See, and so, but I went there 4 times, and 4 times he was in front of that painting. And it's as if he said, my heart is here. And I said, how did you come? And I didn't understand. Yes. So sometimes it's not the synchronicity that it's off like this, you know what I'm saying?